Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
Welcome in to another edition of the JMU Sports News Podcast. I am Bennett Conlon, joined by Jack Fitzpatrick. Jack, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. I want to shout out right at the top, Three Notched, for letting us have that live podcast on Friday night. As I crack open maybe their best beer, the Duke of Clouds. Absolutely fantastic atmosphere. Really kind of exceeded my expectations. I was expecting quite literally only Bennett's family to be there, but we had like 2 other people show up, and that was absolutely awesome. And want to thank Three Notch for letting us be out there on the patio. Really took it over, and we're excited for potential new ones. We've learned from our mistakes, and we're really pumped for potentially doing that maybe a few more times during the basketball season, maybe around the Diamond Duke season. But I just wanted to start at the top, thanking Three Notch for their awesome support last season, this season, and letting us do that.
Great to be there. It was a lot of fun. Had obviously some family and friends, and then some other people there as well. Even a couple App State fans, which I thought was enjoyable.
Yeah, talked with Joe there. Connor, I think Connor is, I don't know if he wants me to disclose who he is on Twitter. He kind of was a little secret about what his Twitter account is, so I won't say it, but I think I figured out who he is on Twitter. And if he's listening, just respond if I'm right, because I think he knows what I'm going way too in depth with that. But I met a lot of cool people, had some awesome discussions. Yeah, and shout out that App State fan. We thought he was all crazy for saying that App State was going to win. Turns out he was right.
Turns out they're giant killers, right? They're able to kill undefeated seasons. They're able to kill legal action against the NCAA, it appears. They're 2 birds with 1 stone kind of situation for the Mountaineers.
Yeah, they're true killers. Other killers out there is BetOnline, because everything starts and ends with BetOnline, the #1 betting source for all of your sports betting needs. There's that copy. I was looking everywhere for that. The holiday season is off and rolling, and as it's Thanksgiving week, it's Thanksgiving Eve as we record. The NFL is in full stride, and the NBA and NHL hitting mid-season form. BetOnline is your #1 destination for all of your sports wagering info, with up-to-the-minute sports wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions. BetOnline is the top spot for everything pro and amateur sports. And not just the Big Four, BetOnline has info available at your fingertips with both desktop and mobile access at any time for almost any sport that's played, from MMA to international soccer. I wonder if they have ITF tennis. Head to the BetOnline today and remember to use our promo code BELIEVE to get your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's promo code BLEAV to get a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts.
Yeah, shout out BetOnline.
Daniel did say bring a battery pack for the laptop next time.
Yeah.
I do want to get this out there because a lot of people were making fun of me at the live podcast because my computer did die. In me defending myself, which might be a podcast trope for today, is us defending ourselves. Bring a battery pack for the laptop next time. It was plugged into the outlet. I just picked the one outlet that was broken. So my computer started at 100%. When you stream, it quickly dies.
Yeah.
And I picked the one outlet that wasn't working.
Fair enough.
And also fair enough is the fact that Christopher William Jewelers is where?
There's a reason Christopher William Jewelers has been voted best of Virginia year after year. It's not just one thing that sets us apart. It's everything. It's the selection, extensive and unmatched, with every engagement ring, loose diamond, and fashion jewelry chosen for quality and brilliance. It's the service. From our diamond experts to our master goldsmith, our team shares a passion for what they do, and it shows. It's the atmosphere, both glamorous and laid back. See for yourself why people can't stop talking about Christopher William Jewelers in Harrisonburg and Weir's Cave.
And a double shout out to Three Notched for for Minuteman Mondays, half off cases on Tuesdays, and you got the first tap Fridays. I love their beer. Their beer is so good. Like, that was one of the things that stood out from the live podcast. Is like, I just love their limited releases, man.
And this is Duke of Clouds is only available in the Valley Collab House. It's essentially their Emperor of Clouds, but it's a session IPA. So it's the session version, which means it's only 5.1% alcohol. So you can have a few of those and not be like wildly intoxicated. I was talking with the
speak for yourself.
taproom manager, Adam, about kind of why they decided to do it. He was like, we were drinking Emperor of Clouds at a tailgate. I don't know if this is supposed to be public knowledge, but here it goes. We were drinking Emperor of Clouds at a tailgate, and we got 2 of them, and we were feeling really good and watered down. And so we decided to make something similar, but bring down the alcohol on it so you can continue crushing them through an entire tailgate.
It's like me, except like a quarter beer.
Yeah, you and your one light beer, and it gets you right.
Ooh.
Gets you feeling good.
Ooh,
all right. What is your choice of light beers? Are you a Bud Light guy, Coors Light, Miller Light?
No. I like to find like local like lagers or pale ales.
God, you sound so pretentious.
Yeah, I'm like I covered UVA for a while, man. It rubs off on you.
Wait, you know journalism?
No, we'll see. We'll see how the podcast.
This podcast, we're going to be diving into a lot of stuff. But between some things, we might get a little heated. We'll see where things go, but there might be some curse words that are said. We normally try to stray away from curse words as much as we can, but if one slips out here or there, we apologize in advance. But just wanted to get that out there before we dived into today's pod, because right at the top, I think we're gonna go into kind of the meat of the news cycle for the last 24 hours.
Yeah, typically we try to follow the Liberty Code of Honor for our podcast words, right? We don't want to wear like shorts or have like anything revealed. As classy as you can be. But the news, the lawsuit, the threatened lawsuit that we've talked about quite a bit on the podcast to give JMU immediate bowl eligibility, it's not happening, right? It appears to be ended, essentially. It seems like JMU stepped in with advice from legal counsel that it was not worth their resources, essentially, or the attorney general's or anyone's. So they don't seem like they're going to be suing, which means you're not going to have a Sunbelt Championship game appearance, which, to be completely clear, they haven't even clinched the East yet. So just, right. So that's not even a guarantee that it would have happened. And then a New Year's Six, which they're no longer would have been in the driver's seat for either. So there's a chance it doesn't cost them anything. There also is a chance it costs them maybe a Sunbelt title game appearance, whatever. But cost is probably the wrong word, to be honest with you, because they never actually had that going into the season.
Yeah, it's been dropped. Essentially, everyone was telling them there's not a chance that you're going to win this case, contrary to a lot of reports that I think it became really evident that there wasn't much of a case to stand on. And I think as much as us JMU fans, us included, would have loved to see a TRO get hit, a temporary restraining order, and JMU get the chance to play in the Sunbelt Championship game, or get the chance to play for the chance to play in a Sunbelt Championship game. Because like you said, after that App State loss, and a lot of people are pointing to that loss of like, it was mentioned in the statement. How can you blame that loss on the student athletes not doing their part? They've won all of these games. I don't think that's the point. I think you have more ground to stand on when you have clinched the Sunbelt East fully and you can point to it directly. Because if they had beaten App State, you can use that as kind of a exact response. Like, you are holding us out of this thing. You are holding us out of all of this. And the real crux of it all is that the deadline was essentially today, because the courts aren't working on Thanksgiving or on Friday. So it needed to be figured out by today. And with all of the kind of the question marks still holding over this case, holding over this temporary restraining order, there wasn't much ground to stand on. If they had won the App State game, there's a lot firmer ground to stand on. Still, probably you're not winning it, in my honest opinion, but that's pure speculation. But I don't think they would necessarily have won it if they even had won that App State game, but they probably would have pursued it. But because they lost that game, there's just nothing really for you to plant your flag in right now for the reasons you said.
Yeah, I mean, there's two important things. One of them is that the letter that the law firm that the attorney general had hired to do the lawsuit that never happened had written, the way it was written was really focused on New Year's Six, because there's a financial element for the conference, $4 million payout for the Sun Belt. There is then also massive exposure for that game that was really stressed in terms of you can't quantify the value to prospective students of playing a Power 5 team in a New Year's Six game on national TV, right? So that was a huge focus, was like, hey, JMU's in line for the New Year's Six. They're no longer in line for the New Year's Six. I saw some people saying 12-1 JMU would get the New Year's Six spot. That's factually incorrect. If Tulane wins out, Tulane will get it. And then Liberty, even at 13-0 against a 12-1 JMU, would have a decent case, to be honest with you. I think it would kind of go either way. But it's not a guarantee they would get a New Year's Six if they win out from this point forward. So that's a substantial change to the facts. The other point that I think is maybe kind of fair is that I think they did a really horrible job with the PR of all of this.
Yes.
Where they were citing like mental health and student welfare and all that stuff. That was never the point. They used that to try to get like public goodwill. That was never the point. This was always about finances. This was always about the exposure. This was always about what would be good for JMU. That was the focus of the lawsuit. It's harder to win when you have the loss. And I do get the fans, though, who argue like, if this is really an antitrust violation, shouldn't they have gone through with the lawsuit? I don't think they're going to win. I don't think they could have won this antitrust violation argument. And the argument gets a lot weaker when you have a loss. And then when the people who are doing it aren't that committed, because now your team might not even be playing in those bowls, your argument shaped around a New Year's Six wasn't even going to happen. So it becomes kind of a weird thing to really go forward with.
Also, JMU, the attorney general, and the outside counsel did not care about the lasting ramifications of challenging the NCAA on an antitrust ruling. They cared about the here and now, about getting JMU into a bowl game. Like, let's call it what it is. Let's call a spade a spade. They didn't care. All of the tweets about us not understanding that there was so much more to this, and this is going to impact Emory and Henry's jump from Division III in the ODAC to the South Atlantic Conference. This is going to impact Bellarmine's transition. This is going to affect Queens's transition. JMU's the outlier here. Sam Houston State's kind of the reason why the rules in place. They stink. Queens isn't the strongest Division I program right now after making the jump from Division II. Like, you see why these rules are in place, and kind of saying that this is so much more than that. I think it shows that it wasn't in JMU's eyes from the very beginning of this when they decided to drop it now. Because like you said, if this was actually about antitrust, if this was actually about everything that they claimed it wasn't about, they would have continued with this lawsuit. But at the end of the day, it didn't make sense financially, time-wise, all of that, for JMU to continue going through with this.
Yeah, I'm okay that it's dropped, but it doesn't really matter. I think the surprise to me was the level of outrage, and then the blame on President Alger kind of came out of nowhere to me, and I was surprised that people blamed him.
Look, this is not Alger's fault. This is not Alger's fault at all. This is the Attorney General's fault. This is all of the hype that went into it. This was the poor reporting that went into it. You know, I did some digging. A lot of people are pointing to the success on the field for JMU about why they should get this waiver. And the success on the field is exactly why they should have gotten the waiver in the first place. However, that waiver takes into account so much more that is out of Alger's control, that is out of Bourne's control. It has to do with state financing and budget and all of that really fun stuff. In 2019, 2020, around the time they were preparing to make this jump, 77% of the athletic budget came from student fees. A big sticking point in this transition was that had to come down to roughly 55% through this transition. Per USA Today, currently 81.38% of JMU's athletic budget comes from student fees, state money, and direct and indirect institutional support. So according to USA Today, they aren't near that 55% number. And that right there is a major holdup in why the waiver was denied and why this lawsuit probably didn't have a lot of legs. Not only that, James Madison does not really have the compliance staff to rival that of a Tulane, that rivals that of a competitive G5. And it also doesn't have the mental health professionals in place right now that they need to make that jump. And that is a big reason why this waiver was not granted. This is more than just on the field stuff. There's so much back end, back room, support staff stuff that goes into these decisions that was not portrayed.
Yeah, a lot of that wasn't ever talked about. Like I don't know what efforts they made to bolster that stuff or what the reporting was. I don't know. I mean, it's one where like I think on the field, right, they're deserving and they got great facilities and all this stuff. So certainly they had some sort of case for a waiver. It was denied. They argued it. Fine. The letters, whatever. I get it. To go all the way to a lawsuit seemed really intense, and I think made the PR get a little bit out of hand. And to be clear, I agree with you that I think like Jason Miyares, I think he probably said a lot more than Alger Bourne would have hoped, to be honest with you.
I think he let his Duke fandom take control, his alumni-ness take control. This is not Alger's fault. Like, and it's the attorney general's fault for doing all of this, for overhyping it. I think someone responded in the litany of Twitter messages I received yesterday. Undersell, over deliver. They oversold and under delivered. Yes. And that's where this anger is coming from. To me, the anger should not fall at Jonathan Alger's feet. This is not Alger's fault. Yes, he's the one that ultimately decided not to do this, but under extreme advice from the attorney general and the outside counsel. If they had told him to continue pushing forward because they believe this is a win, now this is fully speculation. This is speculative. But I believe Alger would have continued with it. And honestly, I have as many resources and sources telling me that as some of the people covering all of this telling them the opposite. None.
There's just, I don't know. It's super frustrating. Some of really all of it. I don't know that they're that deserving of like whatever New Year's 6 guarantee fans think they deserve. It would have been cool. It would have been awesome. What are they, 5-1 in one possession games now? And you're telling me they're head and shoulders better than a Liberty or a Tulane or some of these other, I don't know that they are. Man, honestly, if they hosted Troy in the Sun Belt Championship, I'm probably betting on Troy. Like, not a heart thing, just like I think Troy's playing better football recently. They're playing unbelievably well. I thought they played pretty well in the game that JMU won. The Dukes have like really inconsistent quarters at times. Not that it really matters, but it's just weird to be like, we're being robbed of something when beat Coastal, and then you'll be robbed of a little something, I guess you could say. You put the asterisks or whatever. It's frustrating for the players. I'm frustrated for them and the seniors because I feel like they had to go through this whole PR spiel and get all this hope that maybe they were going to have a chance to play in the Sun Belt Championship or in New Year's 6, and it was kind of taken from them in a weird way, which is disappointing. At the same time, I don't feel that bad for the administration or even the team, to be honest. Like, they've had an unbelievable season with a ton of media coverage. College game day came. Like, this is a special year with incredible accomplishments, regardless of the lawsuit. And the fact that it's become such a talking point, I think is like borderline reckless, like journalism from some of the local media that's then led to this outrage from fan and donors, most of which is made up, to be clear, but there is some outrage. And it's very frustrating because it's like you just focus on the season, this team, what they've accomplished, what they could still accomplish, right? They could still go to a bowl. They can still beat Coastal and, win the East, Kings of the East, all that good stuff. And instead we're talking about a lawsuit that I don't think really ever had an opportunity to thrive. Just like in the spring, we were talking about a waiver that really didn't have a chance to succeed because the coverage around the waiver was pretty embarrassing.
Yeah. There's just so much to this where it's just like, it was handled poorly from every single person involved with this. The fact that it wasn't seen through right at the beginning, that this was all just kind of a political ploy from the attorney general and even Louise Lucas, and like saying that she's going to go to war. Someone responded to me that they won't be in session until January, so her hands are tied. Okay, then why did she even get involved in this in the first place? If like the timelines didn't meet up, like this was all just political grandstanding, and James Madison was used as a pawn. And it's a real shame that it wasn't kind of deciphered that was what was happening when it was first announced and the letter was first sent.
And I do think I will give JMU and the attorney general some credit for the early threats. I think the early threats and like the October stuff, fine. Like if you think you could do public pressure in a PR campaign that would have them switch, similarly to like UNC did with the Tez Walker waiver and some other schools have done with individual waivers, I get that. I think that's like fighting for your student athletes. I think the lawsuit stuff was just really stupid.
Yeah, I think it was a bunch of nothing. Do you want to quickly go through the lawsuit timeline from how it started to now how it ends? And then hopefully we can put some of it to bed. Maybe we'll have some final things, but like, I'm kind of over it. I've been called so many names on Twitter over the last 24 hours that I'm kind of burnt out with it. And then there was just a completely unhinged tweet that really took it over the edge for me, that really ended the whole stuff with me. So we can go through this timeline.
Okay.
Hopefully we can put it to rest.
So the end of April, the waiver was denied, the initial waiver request. Now, this is important to remember because I don't know how much we want to name. Maybe we'll do that in a minute. But a local media member had tweeted in October of 2022 that there was a 95% chance that JMU was not going to have to do the second year of its transition. Kind of a throw-off tweet in a side conversation with an App State fan, which is absurd. But anyway, that's how it happened, right? So you got that little side tweet, never really in a story, but it was out there. And I think fans picked up on that sort of thing, that like JMU believes that the waiver's coming, right? They played that full FBS schedule. They paid Middle Tennessee a lot of money to beat the living heck out of them. They got all their FBS home games, right? Everyone was saying, all right, they're good to go. Then in about mid-April, Kevin Warner starts going on like Dave Rigger's radio show, and he's like, we think we have a great waiver case. But to be clear, we've never believed that this was a shoe-in, which then it started to raise some red flags like, oh, wait, they're backtracking tremendously. Then the end of April, the waiver's denied. So fans and some other people are going to be like, well, that's because the NCAA changed leadership and they thought so-and-so. I get it. They never went on record at any point and said they felt like the waiver was a shoe-in. That was reporting from the local media that made people believe that.
Yes.
They never went on the record. Now, they should have come out and clarified that that was incorrect, which they also didn't do. So frustrating on JMU's end. But everyone got up in a tizzy, mostly because of how it was covered. And then it was denied, and people were furious because they were under the impression it was a lock, when it was never a lock. So, okay, so that's April.
Just a reckless tweet real quick. I mean, just to have that throwaway tweet to say that there was a 95%. And that's kind of
arguing with App State burner accounts. Anyway, it's September then. JMU beats UVA. Things are going their way. They're starting to play good football. That sort of continues right into October, obviously. October 4th. So I think this is JMU's bye week. Jason Miyares writes an angry letter to the NCAA, essentially being like, hey, you got to reconsider this. Like, this is terrible. Okay. Not a lot comes of that. October 19th, JMU beats Marshall on ESPN. Kind of a huge win for the program, right? It was a Thursday night, so the ESPN game is more watched than I think a typical, like some of the ESPNU games they had on Saturdays.
Don't disgrace ESPNU like that.
Those numbers were tough. Anyway, October 22nd, College Football Playoff clarifies that JMU needs full eligibility to be ranked, which means they can only play in New Year's 6.
On the record to us.
Yes. So they need full eligibility. October 31st, Jason Miyares goes on JMU Sound Off. And
real quick.
Yeah.
On that full eligibility, they clarified that JMU, under the current situation, was not eligible.
Yes.
They said you have to be eligible to receive vote or to be put in the College Football Playoff Committee top 25. And then they said JMU, as it stands right now, is not eligible. We will adjust as things adjust. But as of right now, James Madison is not eligible, even if there won't be enough bowl eligible teams. So I want to throw that out there. That was said the first time.
Thank you. Good clarification. October 31st, Jason Miyares goes on JMU Sound Off. They talk to each other for a little bit. They asked him a couple of direct questions, right? Where they're like, hey, like, what is your legal action? When is your legal action? He didn't say anything of substance. And then he said, my civil litigation team's going to be upset because I said too much. He didn't actually say anything. They asked him some questions, though. They tried to get some info out of him. I thought they did a nice job of the interview. Anyway, November 4th, JMU blows out Georgia State. You were there. That moves them to 9-0, going into UConn, which is essentially a bye. Jim Mora says he needs $1.5 million worth of NIL money to compete with JMU, which is, I don't know where that's coming from or if that's enough, but that's what he's claiming.
I mean, JMU right now has like $0 in NIL money. So.
Right. Not sure how that works. But anyway, I think that sort of increased the push a little bit because they had an easy game coming up. Home game against App, you probably feel pretty good about. Obviously, it didn't turn out that way. But then Coastal, right? I think McCall by that point was maybe banged up already. I can't exactly remember, so maybe I'm wrong there. But Coastal hasn't really looked like a world beater. So they're feeling pretty good after that win. So on November 7th, JMU writes a letter to the NCAA being like, hey, we're killing it. Like, I don't know if you've seen.
Well, this was also right when Michigan wasn't getting any punishment.
Yes, that's fair.
For what Michigan was doing. And that felt like the whole basis of their letter was kind of like, hey, we're doing awesome things. Like, you see this. Also, by the way, you haven't done jack poop over Michigan, and like they broke all these rules. We haven't broke any rules. And why can't we play? And then the NCAA was like, Jim Harbaugh, you are suspended from the last 3 games.
Yeah, so they got into that little thing then the NCAA sort of responded or replied. It was like, all right, we'll read your letter and we'll get back to you on your like second request. On the November 15th, the NCAA is like, hey, JMU and Jacksonville State and Tarleton State, stop asking. Quit asking.
Also, by the way, some JMU fans were like, if we weren't lumped in with them, we would have gotten it. No, it was each one was looked at separately, just at the same time.
It
wasn't like they sat down
at the
like,
same time. Yes.
Yeah, they weren't like, we're going to grant all of them waivers or none of them waivers. They were like, okay, these guys have been asking, let's bring our 4 committees together, because it's tough to bring 4 committees together. And let's iron this out real quick about each one individually. Just need to throw that out there too.
Important clarification there. Yes, it was not lumped in with anyone. They just responded at the same time. So then the day after, November 16th, the law firm representing the attorney general, but also representing JMU, writes a letter to the NCAA and is like, hey, get your shit together. We're about to sue you. Like, we're coming. So they're like, we want a letter back with your outside counsel contact info by the 17th, which was one day later with the Friday. So that was last Friday. And then they were like Tuesday or Wednesday, we're recording Wednesday, the 22nd. So it would have been today. They're like, we want to have a hearing to get a temporary restraining order or an injunction to immediately be eligible for bowl games. So then you've got November 18th, Jason Miyares has an exclusive with 2 different publications, which is absolutely how exclusives work. Very cool. Understanding of journalism by everyone involved. November 18th, he talks to the 2 different outlets and he says, stay tuned for Monday. This is Saturday, like morning, I think, or maybe early afternoon before kickoff. Bold, Jason, bold. That backfired in your face, bud. Anyway, he does that before the game. They lose the game. And the way they've sort of framed it is that they had a conversation after the game that led to something that we obviously found out this week. But Monday, nothing happens on this special Monday where everyone stay tuned. So people are getting kind of up in arms on social media. Like, what are we waiting for? This is ridiculous. And then yesterday, Tuesday, November 21st, JMU says the lawsuit likely not happening. They cite the App State loss as part of the rationale, which we've explained a little bit. And it just kind of all dies. All the lawsuit stuff sort of dies. Unbelievable timing on the few hours before kickoff. Stay tuned for Monday. Just, I don't know. Very confident that JMU would win a rivalry game against a fairly competitive opponent that has played like every team within 1 possession or blown them out this year.
I just got to shout out perfect timing, because I believe you were at dinner with your family when all of this news dropped with the lawsuit dropping. And you've been talking about can't wait for news to break about the lawsuit, positive or negative. It breaks 30 minutes and we get a text back from Bennett. Did something happen? Yes, Bennett. Something pretty important.
A ridiculous sequence of events, though. So they really ramped it up. If just to recap the timeline, they really ramped stuff up in November, right? So they got through the year pretty far undefeated. They're ranked in the AP top 25. They believed that they were the top group of 5 team, and they certainly had a case for it with Tulane having a few iffy performances that were still wins, but iffy performances. So then they push for more and have decided it's not worth it at this point to move forward. I don't think the late stuff here where you're looking at, so November 15th, the waiver's rejected again. November 16th, there's the letter saying we're suing. I think they could have avoided this whole mess by just dropping it on the 15th.
I agree. And that lawsuit, correct me if I'm wrong, that was done with JMU's permission. That's when JMU got involved in this whole situation. JMU, outside of applying for the waiver, has not been part of any of this public PR up until last Thursday, correct?
So they did, so their letter on November 7th. So I guess that was 2 weeks from yesterday was
Okay.
when they got involved, and they had not done a lot. But yeah, I think to be clear, like Miaris needed, and this is kind of why they chilled with the lawsuit. They needed JMU's blessing. They wanted JMU's blessing to go forward with a lawsuit. So the idea that like JMU was completely not involved with a lawsuit, they're like, actually, it's the attorney general. The attorney general needs them to be like, yeah, go for it. So if you're going to blame Alger for pulling the plug, then you absolutely have to be clear that Alger, gave him a little check of approval. And I think that's something that's important and wasn't correctly reflected.
Yes. So thank you for that timeline. That is very helpful. I very much appreciate that. I think our listeners appreciate that. Yeah. Where do you want to go from here?
We had a listener question that asked why we don't like Shane Metlin, so we can answer that one. I don't have anything personal against Shane Metlin or the DNR or any local news or any, like, I don't think I've met him. So I don't have a personal grudge. I was complaining about their coverage, which I think is fair to complain about. I was frustrated by the 95% waiver tweet back last year, right? Certainly one that I felt was a bit misleading, but really surprised, to be honest with you, by the coverage the last few days. So I'll read one tweet. People on Monday were confused sort of why nothing was happening. Somebody asked, is JMU or the Attorney General's office negotiating with NCAA lawyers? And Shane replied, that is about the only thing that makes any sense, but haven't gotten it confirmed. If it is being negotiated, only a very small circle at JMU knows. The Attorney General's office is being cagey. That's just not a factual statement, right? That was not the only logical possibility because they dropped the lawsuit. That's what happened. There was not a secret deal with the NCAA. Pure speculation. And if you read the replies to the tweet, you have people who are just coming up with other replies. So somebody replied, they got to be negotiating. Only reason to be cagey, right? Like that doesn't make any sense. There was someone else, I think, who had replied and said something along the lines of like, I think they're just waiting to announce on Friday. What does that mean? Where's that information coming from? Where are the facts that lead you to believe that it's going to be published on Friday, or they're going to have this, vibes? And that's my gripe. It's not a personal gripe. It's that if you're a journalist covering a team, and I would argue that outside of like people in the athletic department, the DNR probably has like the biggest presence or biggest voice in terms of like credibility, where if they say something, people are going to believe it to be fact. So when you wildly speculate about what's going on and it turns out to be the exact opposite and completely inaccurate, I think that's like just terrible journalism. So that's my gripe. It's not a personal gripe.
But Bennett, you don't know anything about journalism. You're not a journalist, right?
That's exactly right. But I also think that
for the record, Bennett was a beat reporter for UVA. I don't know if you're new to the podcast. We always make that joke, but to be clear, I don't want that sarcasm being lost in this podcast medium. Bennett was a beat reporter for 2 years for UVA athletics.
That is correct. And I still do some betting journalism these days. But it's just, I thought the coverage was frustrating. So it's not a personal thing. People think it's a personal thing. I've replied to other journalists that I think have done things incorrectly or done things well, right? Like, I don't think I ever got into anything with Greg. People replied to me at times. I've had people that I've worked with be like, what are you talking about? It's just sort of how it goes sometimes when you're reporting on a bunch of facts, and there's obviously a lot of important things going on. But the other thing I thought was really frustrating was there were retweets yesterday from DNR reporters of someone tweeted, that sound you just heard was my wallet closing to everything but sports. There was this is a tweet from Shane. Suffice it to say, I guess there's a typo in there. Suffice it say, Alger has angered a significant portion of JMU's donor base right now before two important fundraising initiatives. That's not a fact. That's not a fact.
Unless there's a source out there stating that, but you
not
can't.
Anonymously as well. Like it's
yes, not anonymously.
If you can come back to me in a month and be like, these people said they were going to donate 10 grand and they didn't do it. Cool. Very cool. But right now it's just a bunch of malarkey. There's the column today that they wrote that starts the second paragraph is one of the most ridiculous things I've read in my life. It talks about President Alger losing support of the fans, alumni, and key donors. And then the sentence says, in the midst of the most insanely successful fall semester JMU sports has ever enjoyed, the future of the entire athletic department is in peril because of one decision. That's insanity.
Can I just react to that real quick?
Yes.
That's also, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I might be wrong. Who knows? That is so football glasses. Because this only impacts football for the next 2 months. If that. Basketball can still go dancing. Men's soccer, which we're going to get to later in this episode. I am pumped for our men's soccer segment. Men's soccer, they're in the NCAA tournament, potential to get to the College Cup, have played 2 excellent games against Pitt and Georgetown. It doesn't impact them. Women's soccer got an at-large. Volleyball likely to get an at-large here. All of them are going dancing. It sucks that this impacts football, which is the sport we all care the most about. Let's not beat around the bush. We all care about football more than any other sport on JMU's campus, maybe except men's basketball, maybe softball in there. But like for the vast majority of our listeners, it's most likely football. So to say that it's in peril, that JMU athletics is in peril, is just so football-sided in my opinion, because this is only impacting one program for the next 2 months, for the next 60 days. And then they won't be impacted by this anymore.
It goes on to talk about how Signetti might feel that when Bourne leaves, the president there didn't have his back during this situation. Man, Signetti could leave anytime he wants.
Signetti will leave for a fatter paycheck. He's one of the most underpaid coaches. Also, I'm not sure if this is 100% true. I'm fairly certain Bourne is sitting in on the hiring process.
He is, and a consulting firm would likely be involved. So the idea that Alger is doing the hire all on his own is silly. So it's one where I'm sure they could find somebody that'll work with whoever. That's an important hire. That's been an important hire before any lawsuit was involved.
And crazy concept. And again, call me stupid if this is stupid. If Signetti is valued that much, I would not be shocked if he was involved in some sort of the hiring process. If they use that as a carrot to dangle to try and sweeten the pot to keep him here.
Yeah, like if that's, it's just, it talked, the end was like said that it squashed all the momentum the athletic department had built. How does it impact men's basketball? How does it impact women's basketball or soccer?
Ranked. Women's basketball is still looking great. Men's soccer is still playing for a potential College Cup appearance. It's so football-sided.
And wrong, I would argue. Like, I don't think it's right. Like, the athletic department's in peril. The athletic department has a really important hire that will impact its trajectory of a new athletic director. That would have happened with or without a lawsuit. The idea that Signetti is going to leave because they didn't file a lawsuit. No, he's going to leave because someone's going to pay him a lot more at a Power 5 job. What are we doing? So, yeah, just to be clear, it's not a personal thing. I just like it when my beat reporters stick to their facts. And there haven't been a lot of facts. And the facts that have been listed have been wrong. There's been a lot of speculation.
Or anonymous.
Or anonymous. Like, you can't just go and cite anonymous sources about how TRO has a 75% chance of happening. That's not what I heard from any of the people I spoke to. 75% chance of happening. They don't even ask for it. What happens if they don't ask for it? It's probably 0%.
And not to be like, well, I talked to sources too. I talked to 3 lawyers. All of them said this is a long shot.
There's just a lot of vague statements too. There was one in there, one of the stories that says the law community in Virginia is confused. You spoke to every lawyer in Virginia and got a consensus. You took a poll and found that they were all confused. No. So if anybody wants to come and has questions about journalism or what I do or don't know about journalism, happy to answer any questions. Happy to tell you why. Not a personal thing. So hope everybody at the DNR has a great Thanksgiving and covers the game. I read their coverage religiously. Follow WHSV, all their coverage, right? The Breeze. Everyone, it's not a personal thing. But if you're like stoking the flames and now people are tweeting fire John Alger, I think that's pretty reckless if you're in a reporter role.
People are also tweeting other things about John Alger, which are completely out of line.
No surprise there, though. Some people are effing losers, I guess, right?
It's something about it because some of the tweets I was reading. Also, I want to say Bennett is the journalist here. I'm just the comic relief on the other side. I've never claimed to be a journalist. People were like saying, like mocking me for claiming that I was a journalist. I write power rankings and talk on a podcast, and my full-time job is social media. Never once have I. Bennett is the one I refer to for all journalism. However, I did major in journalism, took many ethics classes, took many kind of what to do and what not to do classes. And that also kind of plays into my role as a social media manager, because in the new age of digital media, social media is a huge part of it. And you have to follow journalistic standards because you can get sued. You can get hit pretty hard with fine, like all of that stuff. But I've never claimed to be like a newspaper journalist, just so everyone is aware, because some people thought I've claimed that. And also, this isn't a shtick.
No shtick. Also, the last thing I want to say, I want to give Shane at least a decent amount of credit in his column. I disagree pretty wholeheartedly with the statements about like the athletic department in peril and every donor being mad and every fan being mad. I really think those are way too far.
Yeah,
he made some
I'm
really
not
good.
Mad, you're not mad.
He made some really good points in there about it being ridiculous that the letter that JMU sent, or the attorney general, whatever the letter was, talked about athlete mental health and like how they should be able to play in these games. If that was really what they believed, the Sun Belt Championship is very much in play. They're like a 10-point favorite over Coastal and would host that game. If you really wanted to give them that opportunity, you would continue the lawsuit or any fight you could do. So that's extremely frustrating to be like, hey, I'm worried about our athletes' mental health. Are you? Like, obviously not. So that was lame. And I think they should be taken to task for that a good bit. I would not go as far as to say that the entire athletic department is in peril when they're literally thriving more than they have ever thrived in a fall. That's just wrong.
Yeah. All right.
Rant over.
Ran over. 42 minutes in. We'll hit to football. App State came to Bridgeforth Stadium.
What a game.
And took down James Madison in what could be described as a Sun Belt instant classic. An overtime win for App. Was not a controversial call. I'm sorry. He got in. Every video angle on the video board, it was call confirmed. He got in, folks. I know there was Pat McAfee was talking about how potentially he didn't get in. I was like, Pat, I know you're pandering. You're the pander king, and I love you for it. But geez Louise, he definitely got in. App State won the game, and maybe this is me looking at this game with purple lens glasses. This was me watching, in the student section in general admission in Bridgeforth Stadium, a few Bold Rocks deep, a few bourbons deep, having myself a grand old time in that game. But I don't think App State won that game. I think James Madison lost it. This was a game.
Give the Mountaineers some love.
I will. I do have that written down. I got my notes. I'm ready for it. App State out executed JMU in every facet of the game. They played a better overall game. But JMU was a missed field goal away from one of the most reliable kickers in 2023 and 3 missed tackles away from forcing a potential double overtime.
They played poorly and almost won.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
yeah, crazy.
I think, like a miss. I was talking with Dom about this one, and he said it reminded him of the Villanova game a few years back, which like cost us the chance to be a top 4 seed in the FCS playoff or something like that, because of an Ethan Racky missed field goal, like his only missed field goal in his 7 years at JMU. And I was like, that's kind of true, because Camden Wise has been phenomenal this year. This game does not fall on him at all. There was blame to go around in every part of that game, but you just kind of look at kind of the overarching big headlines of the game. And if they go the other way, very easily JMU wins it. But that's the danger of playing in 1-possession games.
Also, like maybe the most fun I've ever had at a JMU game. The game day atmosphere, like college game day, was absurd. I mean, they said 26,000. I won't debate that. I won't do any counting.
I've heard some people can actually count to 5,000.
So people are doing a lot of counting. And I was like, I was like looking when I was there, and I was like, I would have no idea how to estimate this crowd size. So good on anyone who can estimate it.
Well, I remember looking at the aerial shot of the Open, and I went, damn, that's a lot of people.
That's what I was saying. I thought the official crowd would just be like a lot. Wow.
The official crowd number, damn.
Yeah, that's crazy. But it was crazy. So that was cool. And then like the people stayed for the whole game. The fans stayed for the whole game. It was an electric atmosphere, even though the offense didn't do anything until the fourth quarter. A ton of fun, great rivalry. I just really enjoyed it. I thought it was a great weekend, a great game. I know obviously very disappointing to lose in a heartbreaking fashion for the Dukes, but credit to App State because they were not afraid of the moment at all. They seemed to play I don't think they played their best game either, but they did some things well and found a way to get it done.
Yeah, some people were saying that like it was the worst game of the season for JMU. I think it was the worst game of the offense for the season. The defense played its heart out. Defense gave the offense every single opportunity it needed. Could they have generated more pressure? Could they have gotten a turnover here and there? Of course, but they did what they needed to do to give the offense opportunities to kind of take a stranglehold on the game and push away. I mean, they got the safety, and then 2 plays later, App State had the ball back on their 33-yard line and scored a touchdown. Daniel Merriman, the student section was ballistic for College Game Day. Pat McAfee all the way through overtime. That was the craziest I've ever seen Bridgeport for 4 quarters.
It was phenomenal. It was phenomenal. I've seen some people talking about bring that every week. Going to be like impossible to totally replicate that, given the game and like the atmosphere surrounding it and everything going on. But yeah, I think they are starting to build sort of a more consistent week to week environment that I think is pretty clear from both of our perspectives. You got to expand this thing.
No, not both of our perspectives. Don't let me into this.
Almost got you. I'm almost down on expansion. I think I'm turning the corner, man. What an atmosphere that was. So much fun.
It was a great atmosphere. Okay, we'll get into expansion in the offseason. We got to hold some
That's
takes
true.
in our back pocket. Third quarter, though, was the issue. Third quarter, the issues, they reared their head. JMU had 3 drives in the third quarter. They had 5 first downs. Only one of those first downs had a successful play, which was gaining 50% of yards or more needed to get the first down. And in that third quarter, Jordan McLeod was not solid. After a second quarter where he threw for 97 yards but lost a fumble and had an interception, seemed like Kurt Signetti was quick to pull the reins back because they ran it a lot in the third quarter, and he only had 4 pass attempts going for 9 yards and had -4 rush yards. That third quarter issue, I hope that's not a trend. I hope that's kind of a blip on the radar because that kind of scares me.
Yeah. It was kind of a concerning performance on offense, really, until late. And they're a weird team, JMU, in the sense that they've had so many times this year, the UVA game where it's like, hey, like if you don't play perfect out of the rain delay, you lose. They played perfect out of the rain delay and won. They had the Utah State game where they had like 3 game clinching kind of stops in like a 5-minute span where they just kept getting turnovers and making all these plays. Troy, they needed a lot to go their way late, and they found ways to do it. South Alabama, they needed a late stop, right? It was like this whole stretch early in the year where they just kept doing all these things. ODU, they had one. And then against App State, it was in the fourth quarter. Like, if you don't play darn near perfect the rest of the quarter, you're done. They convert a 4th and 18, down 8 to Elijah Surratt, hit him for a touchdown on the next play, hit him again for a 2-point conversion to tie it. D'Angelo Pons with the interception of the year, Heisman campaign, to send it to OT. And then the first play of overtime is like a 15, 16-yard game. Maybe it was more. It might have been like a 20-yard game to set him up with like first and goal to 6.
To Surratt.
Yeah, to Surratt. And then they end up settling for a field goal. If you go back and watch, McLeod miss like a couple wide open reads. But what a crazy finish.
And then that second play of overtime, it was an Elijah Surratt slant that was wide open. McLeod put it about 2 yards to his back shoulder. He couldn't get back around to get it. They targeted Surratt on the 4th and 18 touchdown, 2-point conversion, first play of overtime, and the second play of overtime. 5 straight plays. All of them should have been positive plays.
In second down, so the third play of the first overtime, they ran almost like almost a double move kind of slanty thing where like Surratt acts like he's going to go down. They pump fake it and then he jumps toward the end zone. They pump fake it. He jumped toward the end zone. Dude is wide open. Like he's looking at him. He's got it. Pump fake. And then he ends up going to Lawton and threw it at his feet. And Surratt's got his hands on his head. And he's like, oh, because he cooked him, man. He was making unbelievable plays. But I thought the finish showed a lot of fight. But App State on the road to have that madness happen to them and then take the ball in overtime and score, I thought was just very impressive.
Yeah. You want to hear a crazy stat?
Always.
JMU had 28 plays on their final 2 offensive drives in the fourth quarter. They had 29 total plays run from the start of the second to the end of the third.
That's insane.
Just a
Man.
complete, like, how can you go from that where you're like your offense is inept and unable to do anything, and then they're like, you know what we're gonna do? We're about to rattle off 2 12-play drives, or I think it was a 12-play drive and a 16-play drive that went 75 yards or more on both. And it's just like, yeah, for the last 2 quarters, you have had 100 yards of total offense. I will say one thing really quick, and I might sound like a broken record. The run game is not good. We need to stop. We need to abandon the run game wholeheartedly. Just so many times. I'm trying to flip through my notes to see if I got any notes on the run game. I think they had 38 total yards, 1.8 yards per rush. No one was really that good. Yeah, it was very interesting. But yeah, that's App State.
Yeah, they can't run it, which is a concern.
Very much. That brings us. Are you ready to go on to our next segment?
Yeah.
That brings us to our 3-notched weekly preview. Coastal Carolina. We head down to Conway, South Carolina, right outside Myrtle Beach, with the Sun Belt East crown on the line. The Chanticleers, led by Tim Beck. He's their new head coach. Spent a stint as the offensive coordinator and quarterback coach at Texas from 2017 to 2019. Then was at NC State up until when he got hired to replace Jamie Chadwell after he left for Liberty. Grayson McCall, he's out. Jarrett Guest or Ethan Vasco will start. They're not really naming which one. According to some local media in Coastal Carolina, they're saying Guest has the lead right now. But Guest is the better pure QB, but Vasco is a very dangerous dual threat quarterback. They're a team that profiles very similar to App State.
Yes, they are good passing the ball, good on pass defense. Don't have a great running game. If I'm not mistaken, their rushing offense is worse than App's, and their rushing defense is similar. So not a bad setup to beat JMU, to be honest. That setup, obviously, you've got a backup quarterback or a third string. They're pretty talented, those two guys. They have decent depth in that room because McCall missed some time last year, and I think at least Guest got a good run last year and some chances to play. So they're confident in what they're doing. I thought last year Coastal was really soft. Like, I just don't think they were a tough football team. Oh gosh, that'd be unbelievable if they had those 3 receivers, Daniel. But it would sorry.
You got to read it out loud for our podcast.
Yes, exactly. Well, I was going to go back to it, but Daniel said, can you imagine Elijah Surratt, Reggie Brown, and Juice Wells as the receivers? That would indeed be wild if they had those 3. But Coastal Carolina, good, not great. Last year, I thought they were soft. I think Tim Beck has made them less soft, but they're still not like an elite team. Like, I don't think they're necessarily top tier of the Sun Belt. Like, I think JMU and Troy I would put above. But they are right there, I think, probably similar to App and maybe a tier 2. Of course, App just beat JMU, but it feels like an upset. And they play that game 10 times. I think JMU's probably winning 7 or so. But yeah. Coastal's decent.
This is a game with a lot on the line, though, because if Coastal wins, they win the Sun Belt East. If JMU wins and App State wins, App is going to the Sun Belt Championship game representing the East, and JMU can hoist their Kings of the East signs again, all of this stuff. So essentially, this is a major game for Coastal Carolina, a de facto rivalry game where they're essentially playing with not a lot to lose, because if you lose this game, your season probably isn't done because you're going bowling, but like the important part of your season is done.
It's a big one again, which will be, I think, a lot of fun, and maybe this rivalry develops a bit
with a lot of, like, something I kept talking about going into that App State game was the revenge factor from the Mountaineers. Like, we went to their place, pulled off this epic upset, not epic upset, but epic comeback, and college students, college athletes want to get a little bit of revenge for that. Now we're going to Coastal Carolina. We destroyed them last season. Kurt Signetti made some wild post-game comments that I know are being replayed on repeat in that Coastal locker room. The Chanticleers are going to want to punch us in the face. And that means a lot in college sports, especially with all the distractions.
One of Signetti's most, like, hilarious press conferences, right? He's like, thought we should have scored 65 on him. Like, all these, he's like, yeah, national statement we made. Wasn't surprised by it. Thought their offense would have been like more of a test for the defense. All these.
He sounded like me in my post-game FIFA matches when I beat a team 10-0.
He was talking a lot of game, and then obviously they had the Kings of the East signs out within like half a second of winning the game. So they're posing on the field and talking all this stuff. Yeah, Coastal's going to be pretty fired up for this one because you're going to have, even with the transfer portal and all this stuff, new coaching staff, there's some familiar faces on the other side.
Yeah. All right, that's football. That brings us to men's basketball. They're good, folks. I don't know when they tip off here soon against Fresno State. They beat Southern Illinois. I was kind of pushing back against the idea that these first half, end of half collapses are a trend, but it is a little scary that they allowed a 14-0 run against Radford, and Radford had a lead at halftime. They allowed an insane run from Southern Illinois to lead by only one after dominating for like 15 of the 20 minutes in that game. Going to be a massive game against Fresno State here tonight.
Yeah, great game. 8:30 tip. Should be a fun one in Cancun, and then the women's team plays in Cancun on Thursday and Friday, so pretty cool stuff there. They're playing very well. Both sides, I think, are impressive at this point, right? You got the women's team that only has that sort of choking loss to Toledo. They get Michigan State on Thursday, which is a good test. You could have both the men's and women's team beat Michigan State, which would be really cool. Men's team's just kind of cruising. I like what they're doing. They're really deep. We've talked about that in the past. I don't know, just mostly impressed with both teams.
Men's basketball plays a very wild brand of defense.
Yeah.
And like offensively, it gets a little crazy sometimes with like just chucking it up and missing shots and just completely playing out of their gourd. But defensively, they have held every team they've played this season to really bad shooting percentages.
They're good. They're good.
They're a legit team. I think they are one of the best mid-major programs in the entire country. I think they're going to win an NCAA tournament game this year.
I think
Am I crazy for thinking that?
No, I think I'm with you. I'm fully bought in right now. We'll see what they do against Fresno State, but find it pretty hard.
That brings us, we haven't spent a whole lot of time talking about men's soccer, but thought we could take the time now as they've won 2 games in the NCAA tournament. They took down Pitt, I believe 3-2, then took down Georgetown 1-0 last Sunday with a penalty kick in the first half. Took down a Georgetown Hoyas team that is typically one of the best teams in the nation. And now they are 2 wins away from heading to Louisville for the College Cup. First up, they have this showdown with LMU over on the West Coast. Should be a very, very solid match.
Yeah, it should be a big time opportunity for them, right? They're closing in on Elite Eight College Cup, and that's pretty darn exciting. They're the only athletic department in the country, right? With all you got men's basketball ranked, football ranked in the AP Top 25, and then you've also got men's soccer in the Sweet 16. So they're cruising, and they seem to have a team that looks the part of a team that can make the College Cup, right? They got a bunch of really good playmakers.
Yeah, they have a lot of great playmakers. 11 guys this season have scored a goal. 5 guys have recorded 10 points or more. They're led by Rodrigo Robles. He averages half a goal per game, which is 4th best in the Sun Belt, 56th best in the nation. So a really solid striker for the Dukes. They have Clay O'Bara, Evan Southern. They're both second on the team with 6 goals. O'Bara's not afraid to take shots, averaging 1.21 per game, 4th most in the Sun Belt. So you have a guy who's really efficient in scoring goals and another guy who puts a lot of stress on opponent goalkeepers with that many shots per game. And then their keeper, Sebastian Conlon. I might be mispronouncing his name, but it's essentially your last name, Bennett, but with O's instead of I's. And I thought that was really funny.
I got
not
an O in there.
What?
I got 1 O in there.
Yeah, you know what I mean, though.
Yeah. Do you think he's related somehow and he just changed his name?
Not at all. He's been really good lately. He's had 9 saves over his last 4 games and has come up big in these big time moments. Only allowed 1 goal, I believe, against UCF. Didn't allow any against a potent Georgetown team and allowed the 2 against Pitt, but his offense picked up the slack. He averages 1.24 goals allowed and has just a 68% save percentage. But as a sophomore, you expect him to grow, and he's really been living up in these big moments. This is a back line, though, that really protects him. They're an experienced back line. They've played a lot of minutes together. Each one of their defenders have played 1,300 minutes or more so far this season. But a matchup you want to watch out for in this game is LMU likes to muck it up. And you always got these teams. They don't necessarily have the great score. They don't necessarily have the gaudy numbers. But what they want to do is they want to punch you in the face, metaphorically, maybe actually
really, yeah.
literally with this team. But they want to muck it up. They want to play possession. They want to get their goal and then just hold the ball and maybe strike on the counterattack to add on some insurance. But they're okay with winning games 1-0. They have one of the kind of worst bottom half offenses in their nation. They, 60 yellows this season. They lead their conference in both red cards with 4, yellows with 60. They have the 129th best scoring offense, averaging just 1.26 goals per game. For comparison, JMU averages 2.16. So a very different styles in this match. Very much a contrast. To win this game, JMU's going to have to survive the punches thrown and really try and take it to them, which is going to be really tough on the road. But LMU, they can got their 4-3-2 since the start of October. I'm pumped for this game.
It's a great preview. I thought the yellow card stat was informative and hilarious because it kind of tells you what you're going into. It might be a little bit of like a street fight kind of match, and those are fun, especially in men's soccer where the flair for the dramatic I feel like is a little higher. We could have some big time flops.
Yeah, men's soccer is hilarious. In a Charlotte game, there was almost a massive brawl at the end of their 3-0 loss to Clemson, and it was electric.
Can't wait for it. This should be a good one, though. They got a, like you said, good chance to win. And volleyball, their season's over. They fell to Coastal Carolina in the Sun Belt Championship, but they picked up some nice wins along the way in the conference tournament. You outlined that they have a pretty strong at-large case. I think you said they were 6-8 against teams with top 50 RPI. So the selection show is going to be Sunday at 6 p.m. Seems like they have a decent chance of getting selected, which would give men's soccer, women's soccer, and volleyball at-large NCAA tournament berths, which is a huge deal for a mid-major.
Yeah, just 22 days ago, which now seems like a lifetime ago with what's everything that's happened in November. But they were a projected seeded 7-seed team at the start of November. That was with them being projected to win the Sun Belt at that time. But I mean, picking up a win against Texas State, which I believe was 32 in the RPI, and then their losses to Coastal hurt, but it doesn't derail your season by any means. JMU still is a top 25 RPI. 64 teams make it? It's 32 at-larges. So unless there was a ton of bid stealers, I think volleyball makes it as an at-large.
That's big time for them. All right, listener questions, and if you want to do pick them, we'll do pick them.
Okay.
I'll do listeners. You want to do listeners first?
Do listeners first while I pull up pick them.
Okay, I'll hit you with some questions here. We already translated 24 Savage season, which I believe is what that is, although the 4 doesn't make sense as an S.
Yeah.
From Screen the Screener podcast, will smaller, talented jitterbug guts continue to give JMU issues like Johnson did, ex-Johnson, in conference play? I think, was Johnson the guy who dropped 38 yesterday?
I think so, but I think they have one of their own. And as long as no one else is crushing you, I don't think it's that big of a deal.
No, if they score 76, but one of them scores 38, that's all right. Not the end of the world because they play such a fast pace that 76 points won't kill you. Daniel Merriman had a hilarious question. If JMU versus Liberty Bowl occurred, how much would JMU win by?
JMU Liberty in a bowl?
Yeah, how much would they win by?
28.
Really? I'm calling around on Liberty's competitiveness.
Get out of here. Get out of here.
Not the school. They had a story I read today that was pretty appalling. But let's see what else. I'm not going to read that one. Some of these are like calling for Tim Miller. If you think Tim Miller played an important role in the lawsuit, go to sleep.
Get a grip.
Yeah. Okay. Just take the night off, right? Just get yourself some rest.
Go enjoy time with the family this Thanksgiving week.
Exactly.
Touch grass.
From Javi KVLTOF Cafe 86. The university having an amazing venue like the Atlanta Union Bank Center. Why have they never hosted WWE?
I think he also asked about AEW, which is another.
Yes.
I think Daniel answered this one in the comments where there's not like a huge transportation hub. It's kind of hard to get to JMU. However, I feel like the local area would eat that up.
Be cool. Yeah. I didn't even thought about that, but that'd be cool.
But I think the main reason is like it's not necessarily like a huge hub. And JMU just opened the AUBC, so they're probably very selective on like allowing people in.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Another one from Nine Finger Craig at Craig Mack. Does the women's basketball team have any chance of being ranked this year?
I don't think so.
Be hard.
Unless they like win out the rest of their non-con and a Sun Belt team rises up even better than what Troy was last year in the regular season. You're going to need another Sun Belt competitor that you can pick up a couple wins against, and you're going to need your non-conference to go perfectly here on out.
Yeah, I think some of the issue too with the AP poll is that so much of it is like narrative, where the Michigan State win for the men's side was a top 5 team on opening night, and it was like a dull slate of games. And I feel like everyone saw it and they're like, whoa,
Yeah.
the Dukes. I don't think they have a game like they play Michigan State. Liberty's decent. Wake Forest isn't supposed to be great. And then they play at Maryland on the 20th. So like if they get through that, maybe, but you need some of those like popping wins to get ranked. Somebody asked the thoughts on a tweet from Shane Mellon. Suffice it to say, we already answered that one. The donor stuff. Answered the axe to grind. No axe to grind. No axes to grind. Just have an issue with the journalism. Mangy Dog. He's saying the biggest problem with the decision not to pursue the suit against the NCAA, in his opinion, it put Kurt Signetti in play. Other schools will pay the man and support him. What do you say?
I think Kurt Signetti was already in play.
Big time.
This doesn't change anything. And I think this doesn't change whether he stays or doesn't stay. People really hyping up the fact that Harrisonburg's a great place, which it is. But coaches don't care. He doesn't have any loyalty to JMU. He didn't graduate from here. He has a loyalty to his bank account. And that's not a bad thing. He definitely should. And if he wants to say, that's awesome. I can't wait for him to stay. If he chooses, lifetime free beers at Billy Jack's and all the gin and tonics he wants at Cuban Burger and the free draft pours at Three Notch and just being a local hero, if he chooses that over, a $5 million a year job for the next 5 years, that's awesome. I just wouldn't hold it against him. And I think he's been in place since the start.
Beers on me.
Put on my tab.
Like one beer. From James Hemphill, what will it take to win the College Cup?
Gritting out wins. I think the Georgetown win is a 1-0 gritted out win. I think you're going to need exceptional play out of your back line, exceptional play out of your sophomore keeper. And you're going to need your big players like Robles, like Obera, like Southern, your 3 leading scorers to kind of take over. Big time players make big time plays in big time moments, whatever that cliche is. You're really going to need that here on out because you're a mid-major. And you might be outmatched in some of these matches. But in college soccer, if you can find a way to get that early lead, if you can dominate possession, you can find your way to a win. You have no business winning.
I like that. All right, only a couple left here. From Fortitude Fitness, how unlikely is it now that there won't be enough 6-6 teams? So Buffalo lost, so that takes one of the wins JMU needed off the equation. But there's 22 games this weekend, and if they have 11 of them go their way, they're good to go. They also have a chance that Navy could still miss, but Navy needs to lose 2, so they'll have to lose to SMU, and then also lose to Army, but that's neither here nor there. There's a decent chance, though.
I don't think the Army game counts.
It does for Navy's bowl eligibility if they get to 6.
Okay. I think it's an 89% chance that we make it.
We had seen that on the internet.
Coach,
he's saying good chances. I think 9 of the 22 games, it's favored JMU's way, but there's a lot of games that are within
a touchdown
spread of 3 or something or 7. Yeah. And then he also said, when can we remove our president? He seems like a clown, which goes with a follow-up from someone else that said, why did Alger sell out on the football team and kill their chances to play Troy again?
He didn't.
Right.
Listen to the first 40 minutes of this podcast for that answer.
Yeah. Also, would be just outlandish to remove a university president because he didn't file or go along with filing a lawsuit that would lose. That would be really, really poor judgment. You would not get a good president to replace him because nobody would want to take that job.
I didn't find the numbers, but I'm fairly certain Alger has funneled a lot of money to the athletics department. So to say that he does not care about athletics he understands the importance of it. He understands the front porch theory of athletics that brings in, new students, brings in overall money for the university. He's done a lot to bolster James Madison. He's done a lot to bolster James Madison athletics as well. And he's doing what he needs to do as a president of a multi-million, potentially billion-dollar university in Virginia to make sure that JMU's best interest is at heart. Not saying that's necessarily the right thing, but he doesn't care what fans think.
And he should, right? You shouldn't base
He
your
shouldn't.
decision.
I'm glad that Alger is our president and not the attorney general for a multitude of reasons, but that's one of them.
And he's mostly let Bourne like kind of do his thing over the
Yeah.
over the years, which is very smart. He's let Bourne be great and do that, which in my eyes is him caring about athletics, hiring
Yeah.
somebody good and letting the person do their thing.
Anything else?
I think that was all of them.
All right. Quickly, let's roll through Sunbelt Weekly Pick'em. Thanksgiving week, Sunbelt Weekly Pick'em. I didn't count the numbers from last week, so I apologize on that. But first up, it's Troy Southern Miss.
Troy gets it done, and they roll into the conference title game with some good momentum.
I agree. Troy is just so much better. They're 16.5-point favorites over Southern Miss on the road. Georgia State, ODU. I'm going to go with Georgia State here.
I'll take the Monarchs. I think they reach bowl eligibility, which shocked me. I thought they were going to be like a 2-win team this year.
ODU is a 3-point home favorite in that one, but I like the Panthers to bounce back after absolutely getting embarrassed like the last month of football. ULM, Georgia State got bowl eligible and said, we're done winning. ULM, Louisiana.
I'll take Louisiana, but I think it would be very funny if ULM won.
I'm going to take Louisiana as well. For JMU's purposes, we need ULM to win, but the Raging Cajuns, a 12.5-point home favorite. Georgia Southern, App State. Give me App State.
App State, yep. I think they get it done, and I think App State will be in the conference title game.
I agree. I think App State is going to do what it needs to do, and then I think we're going to do what we need to do against Coastal. Arkansas State, Marshall.
Oof. I'm going to take Arkansas State because they're a wagon now.
Arkansas State, after Butch Jones cried on the sideline, is now 6-5, 4-3 in Sunbelt play. Marshall, a 2-point home favorite in Huntington, West Virginia, 5-6, 2-5 in Sunbelt play. Give me the Thundering Herd here. South Alabama, Texas State. South Alabama, a 6.5-point favorite on the road. NFL Network, 7 p.m.
Did you see the Arkansas State Texas State score last weekend?
No.
Arkansas State beat Texas State 77-31. So I'm going to take South Alabama here. I don't know what's going on with Texas State. They gave up like 3 or 4 like defensive and special teams touchdown, but then also got gashed defensively. So I think South Alabama gets it done.
I agree. I like South Alabama there. JMU, Coastal, the Dukes 8-point favorites.
I think the Dukes win this one. I think they'll win it by about a score. I think it'll be fairly competitive, but I think they bounce back, close the year well. I think things break their way. They get into a bowl game and win a bowl game, go 12-1.
They had their opportunities against App. Not only the missed field goal and everything like that, but there were open receivers on a lot of plays. Jordan McLeod and the coaching staff may have had one of their worst games of the season. They really regressed to early season form. I don't see that happening for a second week in the row. I'm going to look at what the sample has been for the past month and a half of football that this Dukes team has been playing. Give me JMU in a blowout win.
Love it.
All right. Anything else you want to add before we get up on out of here?
No, everybody have a great Thanksgiving whenever you're listening to this. Hope you have a good time. Looking forward to the Coastal games and basketball games coming up. I think it should be a fun stretch of the season. I think the athletic department is going to survive this perilous time and do just fine.
For Bennett Conlon, I'm Jack Fitzpatrick. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Happy Thanksgiving. Happy holidays. We'll talk to you next week after the Dukes wrap up their football regular season. See ya.
Thank you for listening to Believe. You can show support to your host by subscribing to the show and giving us a 5-star rating on your preferred platform. Check us out at Believe.com and search for BLEAV on YouTube.